This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A fire ripped through several buildings this weekend in Point Douglas. 3 businesses are destroyed. As CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports, those who live and work nearby say their loss will be felt for a long time.
Thick smoke rolled through the air, filling the sky above Point Douglas early Saturday morning as 3 businesses burned to the ground. The smell was so strong it woke up neighbors blocks away.
When I was waking up, I smelled burning plastic, so I decided to come outside and saw smoke.
Flames started shooting from the roof of the Surplus Direct store on Main Street around 2 a.m., spreading through the roof line to Top Pro Roofing and Lord Selkirk Furniture.
Pretty much burnt to the ground, so it's pretty crazy, pretty Winnipeg staple, so it's pretty sad to see.
Firefighters tried unsuccessfully to get the upper hand. 15 homes and a 3-story apartment building were evacuated as a precaution. 3 firefighters also suffered minor injuries.
These industries, especially Surplus Direct, has definitely had a lot of various combustibles in it. Always toxicity in that smoke with modern combustibles. So that's why we took precautions with everybody in the area to smoke.
Surplus Direct has been in a years-long court battle with its neighbor over one of its fire doors, which the city says doesn't comply with current building codes. In 2013, it was told to vacate the building, but the city paused the order until the case was discontinued last spring. Since then, the city says the owner was given multiple options to fix the issue and obtain an occupancy permit, but as of December, that hadn't happened. As of yet, no cause of the fire has been determined.
We have extensive fire damage here. It's a large building collapse, so that's going to be a lengthy investigation.
Keith Horn owns the Northern Hotel across the street. Horn says the buildings were an anchor of the community, which already struggles to bring new business to the area. He says the fire is a devastating blow.
It's hard enough, the business association is having a hard time filling all these vacant buildings. Now to lose 3 businesses, viable businesses, is just another step backwards.
Leaving a charred hole in the community and a question as to what will fill it. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A toddler and a teenager had to be airlifted to Winnipeg's Hospital for Children after an apartment fire in Tatasquiat Cree Nation. A 17-year-old girl helped save a family of 5 from the fire, but in doing so, she suffered smoke inhalation. The 2-year-old boy, who was also airlifted, is being treated for burns. RCMP say both are in stable but critical condition. The chief of the First Nation, Tara-Lee Beardy, says the apartment building is a total loss, leaving 49 people without homes. Fire crews from York Factory First Nation and Gillam helped fight the blaze before it could spread to a neighboring apartment complex. So far, the cause of the fire is unknown. There was also a fire in Shoal Lake 40 First Nation on Saturday. A 6-unit apartment building there burned to the ground. That leaves 30 people without homes, many of them children. According to the fire chief, 2 people were treated for smoke inhalation and 1 suffered minor burns on their hand. Shoal Lake 40 straddles the border of Manitoba and Ontario. People who lived in the building have been taken to hotels in Winnipeg. Doctors working in family medicine and pediatric clinics will get a pay boost for keeping clinics open longer. Manitoba's health minister says the increase is part of the province's action plan aimed at addressing its physician shortage. As the CBC's Alana Cole reports, that wasn't the only initiative explained today.
Early morning appointments, staying open late, seeing patients on weekends and holidays. Manitoba's health minister says family physicians and pediatricians offering extended hours can now get a 20% premium for billings during those hours.
We do not have a cap. We are saying be part of this program. We want to ensure there's flexibility for physicians and for Manitobans to seek care at different times of the day.
The increase for these extended hours applies to appointments for existing patients and walk-ins. The program will run for a year and a half. Gordon says the move can help relieve the pressures felt by emergency departments and urgent care centers. Doctors Manitoba is optimistic.
We did have a town hall event with about 80 members, and half of which indicated that this funding would be an incentive to provide extended hours.
It's all part of a $200 million action plan first announced 3 months ago. In November, the province committed to retain, train, and recruit healthcare staff to improve healthcare in Manitoba and address burnout. The government also promised 80 physician training seats. Doctors Manitoba says 40 of those seats will help more internationally trained physicians get licensed in the province.
So this is all really positive news. It builds on other recent announcements that have been based on recommendations we have offered.
Another of their ideas is a doctor's peer support program. It's getting $450,000. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More than 100 people gathered at the Manitoba Legislative Building today to be part of Black History in the Making. Manitoba's NDP hosted the first Black History Month celebration in the province since the province's first Black MLAs were elected more than 3 years ago. The party invited Black community leaders and high school students to attend. Sean Robert Slusher says this is also the first year they are commemorating Black History Month at their school in Steinbach.
This is the first year that we've really done anything, because I wrote a letter last year to my principals about how we didn't have anything up for Black History Month last year, so it kind of made me a little sad.
Several speakers said they hope to see Black history celebrated all year long. After a nearly year-long ordeal, a British man is now, once again, a Canadian citizen. As the CBC's Kristen Annabel reports, his trouble began with a technical glitch during his citizenship ceremony.
Welcome to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada.
Brian Sumner has been calling Canada's Immigration Department 2 to 3 times a week since March of last year, hoping to hear an update on his citizenship status. The call usually ends like this.
You may also hang up and try again later.
Since March, I've only ever got through twice to speak to somebody.
Sumner has lived in Manitoba for 17 years and applied to become a Canadian citizen in 2021. He had to do his citizenship ceremony virtually, so he set up his own flag and dressed for the occasion.
The judge came onto the central screen, started to talk, and then my screen went blank.
Sumner could still hear the ceremony, so he did his oath of citizenship.
The big screen came back on, and there was fireworks going off, and congratulations. And the Prime Minister came on congratulating us all as new Canadians. Fine. But then it ended.
He thought everything was okay and even got a certificate from his local MP congratulating him on becoming a citizen. But weeks went by and he got no official documents from the government and his file was closed.
It was horrendous. Every time I got to the place where I wanted to be, sorry, all of our agents are busy, we can't speak to you.
After nearly a year of waiting, Sumner went public with his ordeal. CBC emailed the feds to ask them why Sumner's file was in limbo and why he couldn't get any answers. And during an interview with CBC a couple of days later, Sumner got the phone call he had been waiting for.
Family issue in it. Hello? No answer. Hello?
Hello, may I speak to Brian, please?
Speaking.
Hi, Brian. My name is Charlotte. I'm calling from IRCC Citizenship Canada.
Okay.
We'd like to invite you to a virtual ceremony next week.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye. Well, that was kind of unexpected, I have to say.
And the next day, he got another surprising phone call. The deputy director of the department offered to do a private virtual ceremony that day. And with his partner Julia by his side for support, he officially became a Canadian citizen.
Yes, you are now a Canadian citizen.
Yes. Yay!
In a statement to CBC News, a spokesperson for Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada said that because Sumner lost connection during the ceremony, the judge didn't see him take his oath of citizenship and his documents were shredded. They called the situation a regrettable error and apologized for what happened. Kristen Annabelle, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Last month, Winnipeg councillors asked for a detailed breakdown of how much a protest that had closed the Brady Road landfill had cost the city. And at the time, lost revenue from dumping fees and additional expenses were pegged at more than $400,000. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, the financial impact will actually be much deeper.
The financial impact of a protest demanding a search of the Brady Road landfill for the remains of missing and murdered Indigenous women has reached almost $1 million. Here at City Hall this morning, the Director of Water and Waste estimated the city lost $454,000 in revenue in December. That's on top of about $461,000 in out-of-pocket costs. That includes costs for dumping garbage at other sites during the weeks-long protest. It also includes other costs like extra security. And that's just for the period from the start of the protest around mid-December to the end of 2022.
The total financial impact is approaching $1 million. It's $915,000 for 2022. Again, lost revenue isn't out of pocket cost, but it is part of the conversation here that we were asked to report back on.
The protest started with partial blockades beginning on December 11th. A more permanent encampment was set up a week later. It stemmed from charges against Jeremy Skibicki, who was accused of killing 4 Indigenous women. Remains of one were found at Brady in the spring. Police believe remains of 2 others were taken to the Prairie Green landfill. The identity and location of the 4th victim is still unknown. Last month, Councillor Janice Lukes called for other levels of government to help cover the costs of the protest. Today, Finance Chair Jeff Barati wasn't prepared to commit to that. The estimates from today's meeting don't include any costs from the first 6 days of the year before Brady reopened. Those costs will be included in a written report in April. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's premier and its Liberal leader were in court today, arguing whether Heather Stephenson broke conflict of interest rules. CBC's Bartley Kivas was there.
When Manitoba MLAs sell property, they're supposed to file disclosure paperwork within 30 days. Premier Heather Stephenson admitted more than a year ago she didn't do that. Now, a court is deciding whether she violated the Conflict of Interest Act.
Liberal leader Dougald Lamont took Stephenson to court over her failure to promptly disclose $31 million worth of property sales in 2016 and 2019. Lamont says the premier has to be held accountable.
Right now, the only way to do this is through the courts. I think it's ridiculous that I had to do this, but it's the only way of doing it, and no one else is willing to do it, and it had to be done.
Stephenson argues the mistake was inadvertent. In court today, her lawyer Jonathan Croft advised the court not to get dragged into political decisions. Lamont's lawyer, David Hill, argued Stephenson has been in office too many years to forget she had to file paperwork. Lamont wants Stephenson suspended for 90 days. He also wants the premier to pay a $5,000 fine.
This is about trust in government, and we have to have higher standards, not lower standards. Basically, the premier is saying the law doesn't really apply to her, and even if it does, she shouldn't be punished.
Stephenson argues if she loses the case, she deserves a small fine or no penalty at all. After hearing both sides, Justice Ann Turner reserved her decision.
After the next election, there won't be any cases like this. Manitoba's getting a new Conflict of Interest Act. It will take the power to make decisions away from the courts and hand them over to the legislature. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Weather specialist Fiona Odlum joins us now, all decked out ready for tomorrow for Valentine's Day.
Today's Galentine's in my world, so I'm celebrating the important ladies in my world. That's you.
Aww. That's so nice. That's wonderful.
Moving back to Winnipeg, getting to anchor with you, #1 highlight. I'm saying it right now.
Well,
she's a gem, everyone.
Thank you.
So was the weekend.
It was a gem of a weekend. Thank you for getting me out of
We had a gorgeous weekend, and it was warm, and people were out and about, and I was at the Forks, and it was bonkers. There were so many people there, and why not? It was gorgeous weather like it is right now. Our current conditions in Winnipeg, -1 degree, -8 with the wind chill. Look at the wind. This is going to be our big story, is the wind. We're going to talk about this a lot because we're in for a change, and it's because of the wind. So -1 right now feels great. We're going to see a bit of a shift in the next 36 hours. Let's take a look here at Winnipeg, though. We can see some little flecks of blue there really quickly. We've got a little bit of freezing drizzle out there. Let's move forward just a little bit, and we can see some blue skimming along the provincial border here with the United States. So that's a caution. And as we move east, we've got a little bit there. That's going to be a big problem for you tomorrow. So let's look at our satellite radar for Winnipeg, where we're going to see tomorrow cloud. It's going to be pretty cloudy. That's going to start moving in tonight. Cloudy evening tonight and into tomorrow. And then here's that freezing drizzle just east of Winnipeg. So if you're traveling on that Trans-Canada Highway tomorrow, definitely have caution if you're moving towards northwestern Ontario in that Kenora region, because there is a bit of moisture coming towards you. Then it really just starts to calm down. We see the sunshine return to Winnipeg on Wednesday. A bit of cloud cover again Thursday. But then by the time we get towards Friday, we start warming up again. Now, with that precipitation modeling that I showed you, we're not going to see a whole lot to Winnipeg. It doesn't really register, so just anticipate some light flakes in towards Winnipeg, 1 centimeter into Winnipeg, Dauphin, and even 1 centimeter in towards Kenora. So just light flurry activity, but it's about the wind. So we're going to see that wind and that light snow. You know that's going to make the visibility reduce because of this. Look at this wind pointing straight down, north wind, bringing in all that Arctic air. And we're going to see some big numbers as we move a little further, gusting into the 60s, possibly even the 70s towards that Carmen region and into Winnipeg. So expect that, but it does ease up right away. We're going to see 1 degree at midnight under a partly cloudy sky. Light wind, not a big deal through there. As we get going tomorrow, -2 first thing in the morning, lots of cloud cover. Around 4 in the morning, we could see a little moment of fog, but it should dissipate very quickly. 0 degrees, that's our daytime high for tomorrow, mostly cloudy throughout the day. So what we're looking for as we look towards Wednesday, -14, that's a sharp change, and -24 overnight. That brings us actually back into our 30-year seasonal average. That's where we want to be. Cool again on Thursday. And Janet, there we are again, -2 on Friday, warming right up.
It's weird how it just can jump like that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's February, it's yo-yo time.
I guess so. Thank you very much, Fiona. Check in with you a bit later.
Okay.
The Canadian Armed Forces are leading the effort to recover the unknown object shot down over the Yukon on Saturday. It's one of 4 objects found flying over North America that have now been shot down, 3 of them since just Friday. Catherine Cullen brings us the latest.
The Yukon weather the Prime Minister is experiencing firsthand also makes for a challenging search.
This is a very serious situation that we are taking incredibly seriously. The importance of defending our territorial integrity, our sovereignty, has rarely been as important as it is now.
It's been 9 days since the United States shot down an object it identified as a Chinese surveillance balloon. It fell into the waters off the coast of South Carolina. Then, in the last 3 days, 3 more objects were shot down. Canada is handling the recovery effort in the Yukon.
Obviously, there is some sort of pattern in there. The fact that we are seeing this in a significant degree over the past week is a cause for interest and close attention.
American officials say that since that Chinese balloon was detected, they've adjusted their radar.
One of the reasons that we think we're seeing more is because we're looking for more.
But they are distinguishing these latest objects from the first, saying it doesn't appear that they were transmitting information or moving under their own power.
We know the first one was Chinese. They admitted it. They claimed it was a weather balloon. We know it's not. These three, we don't have attribution for right now. We don't know who owns them. So I'm not going to take anybody's word at face value here.
In Parliament, there's pushback over whether Canada is prepared for foreign threats.
This government has failed to counter foreign interference, failed to stop funding of Beijing's military research, failed to upgrade NORAD's early warning system, and failed to acquire modern fighter jets. Does the government now understand how vulnerable this country is?
The government says yes.
Canada has acted and will continue to act swiftly and decisively to protect our safety and our sovereignty.
The Canadian Armed Forces and RCMP are searching for the object in the Yukon, but no one in Canada or the U.S. can say when any of these three latest objects might be recovered. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
James Ferguson is Deputy Director of the Centre for Defence and Security Studies at the University of Manitoba. I spoke with him this afternoon for some analysis of what's been happening. James Ferguson, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
How concerned should we be about this situation?
Well, I don't think we should be overly concerned. Certainly we shouldn't be hysterical about this. This is concerns about our security in terms of potential penetrations of our airspace for what we can infer right now is for intelligence gathering purposes. But it's not a direct military threat to North America. There are much bigger military threats to North America that need to be confronted and dealt with. So yes, it's important. The role of NORAD is important in this, but let's not go over the top.
You mentioned NORAD. Winnipeg is the Canadian regional headquarters of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. How involved would NORAD be in this situation and everything that's happened?
It would be central to the situation and what everything has happened. Once this was identified by NORAD, assessed and sent to the National Command Authorities in the case of Yukon and Lake Huron, this would have been the Prime Minister to make a decision. The decision is made, then NORAD assets, which are provided by the United States and Canada, come under this binational command. And in terms of the execution of the mission, and we shouldn't really think this is an American fighter, this is a North American asset, would have been directed by Canada NORAD region headquarters, because once it's entered into Canada, this is Canadian. So that's how it was dealt with.
So now we are in a search for whatever was shot down. We know that the Pentagon has said one of these unidentified objects was a spy balloon, effectively. It was for intelligence gathering. Once we find these other objects that have been shot down, what happens to them?
Well, they'll be analyzed. They'll get the what's ever left over, they'll analyze, and they'll be able to tell the analysts and the intelligence officials what these things really were. And we really don't know yet, except for the two cases which we're pretty confident of. And then the question will go to, this becomes a diplomatic issue between Canada and the United States on one hand, and whoever directed these, whether China, potentially Russia, or possibly something that went in internally, which will be a different way to deal with these. They will decide what diplomatic answers they're going to reply to this.
So if we know one is Chinese, what does that do for Canadian and American and Chinese relations? Canada and China are already at a rather difficult place.
Well, both Canada and the United States are in a difficult place with China, particularly for the United States over Taiwan and other bigger issues in the Eastern Pacific, the Western Pacific, pardon me. It depends how the governments decide to play this. Usually in these circumstances, the ambassador to Washington, the ambassador to Ottawa will be called in to the Foreign Affairs offices or Global Affairs Canada and will be delivered a stern note. But how far we want to push this, that remains to be seen. And I don't think it's something we really want to push very far.
Why not, sir?
Pardon me?
Why not?
Well, there's enough tensions in the world, and the intelligence gathering is a normal activity in many ways. We don't do it very much because we don't have the capabilities, but the Americans do it. They have intelligence gathering capabilities with regards to China. So however do you want to push this? How much do we want to stir up tensions with the Chinese instead of trying to find or develop out of this potentially in the silver lining in the cloud, to develop some confidence building measures between the two of us to avoid potential misperceptions and accidents. Those have to be weighed. So it'll be interesting to see how that balance in terms of managing the relationship with Beijing works against, of course, domestic politics on these issues.
James Ferguson, Deputy Director of the Center for Defense and Security Studies at the University of Manitoba, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Oh, an explosion rocked an Ottawa neighborhood this morning. It was caused by a gas leak at a construction site. Look at the mess. We'll have more on the impact of the explosion after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Rescue crews pulled 2 people alive from the rubble caused by an explosion this morning in Ottawa. It happened in a new housing development in the east part of the city.
All of a sudden, you heard the boom and my entire house shook. Like it felt like something hit my house.
That's The view from a doorbell camera that captured the moment of the blast. Look at the damage it did. 5 people had to be treated in hospital, and wow, several homes completely leveled. Firefighters say the explosion was caused by a gas leak. Police and the fire marshal's office are investigating. That explosion was so strong. People living close to it are dealing with destroyed homes now, but it was powerful enough to be felt outside the immediate area. Neighbors living near the neighborhood showed what the force did to their homes. Our Nicole Williams reports.
The glass is all shattered over here. The wall is all cracked. The ceiling has come down.
This is what people in the neighborhood woke up to. Damaged homes after a sudden and terrifying blast. This man came to check on his friends here after feeling his entire home shake.
One of our nieces, she just woke up and she started crying, right? Because we all were fast asleep and we couldn't figure it out. So
the owner of this home says she was asleep when the blast went off just before 6:30 this morning, causing instant panic.
And all of a sudden we heard like a loud explosion. It felt like an earthquake, honestly, at the first time. Me, my husband, and my son, we just came down to see what happened, and we saw like all the people like in our community were like outside, and like everyone was wondering like what is actually happening, because nobody knew like exactly what took place.
All over the neighborhood you can see the impact. Broken windows, broken doors, homes covered in debris. This couple was also shaken out of bed.
But we didn't really know what was going on. Our alarm system started going off because our front door flew open. It broke our front door and our garage, and then our garage door on the inside, like it all just busted open. So our alarm was going off. We like weren't sure if someone broke in or like if it was like an earthquake or a tornado or something. Like we were just kind of like running around.
It's unclear just how widespread the damage is. Emergency crews are still investigating, but some witnesses say they felt the blast up to a kilometer away. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
The premiers have officially agreed to accept that health care funding offered by Ottawa last week. The federal government said it would increase the amount it transferred to provinces and to territories. It amounted in total to about $46 billion in new funding over a 10-year period. Manitoba's Premier, Heather Stephenson, is the chair of the Council of the Federation.
We will be accepting the money from the federal government, but also recognizing that this does not represent what is a long-term funding need for our healthcare systems across the country. We've accepted this for now, but we will move on to the bilateral agreements.
An elated rescue team extricated a young girl today alive from under another flattened building in Turkey. That happened today, 1 week after a powerful earthquake struck. The CBC's Stewart brought us a story on Friday of another person rescued alive from the rubble, a woman. She was rescued from southeastern Turkey. That 37-year-old woman is now recovering from the ordeal of being trapped under her apartment building for days. Stewart went to see her, and here's what she had to say.
Inside this hospital room, we meet Odlum and her mother Gulten. The 37-year-old is recovering after spending more than 100 hours trapped underneath all of this.
Can you tell me about the moment you heard the rescuers looking for you?
It was incredible, she says. He told me to hold his hand. So I squeezed his hand so hard, he told me, "Calm down, we will save you." When the 7.8 magnitude earthquake violently struck southeast Turkey, she woke up to a wardrobe falling on top of her and the building crashing down around her first-floor apartment. In the debris outside, her keepsake box, which was thrown out of her room. I was screaming so loud, she said, my voice went hoarse, so sometimes I lost hope. Shaking uncontrollably from the cold, her mouth was so dry she couldn't swallow. She could hear the rescuers, but they couldn't hear her. She started banging on the stone and concrete, and this is when they knew she was there, and they worked for hours to reach her. A team from Burnaby, BC helped by providing equipment like a camera to find her exact location.
What about that moment when they finally pulled you out of that building?
When they pulled me out, I look at their eyes, they were almost crying.
On the ground, the crowd cheered, but Odlum's mother still didn't believe her daughter was alive until she saw her in the hospital.
Kızım yeniden doğdu, bebeğim.
My daughter was born again, she said. Odlum is bruised and has some kidney damage from being so dehydrated.
Zaten böbrek fonksiyonlarını iyice kaybetmiş olacaktı.
If they didn't save her in the next couple of hours, we'd think she could have lost all of her kidney function, says the nurse, but she's doing well. Her family is so happy, they feel grateful for everyone.
Thank you.
Odlum is thankful for her rescuers, but describes a feeling of broken happiness. 80% of those living in her building were killed. She was only one of a few to survive. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Diyarbakir, Turkey.
And there is growing anger in Turkey over why so many people died, why so many buildings collapsed in last week's earthquake. Authorities have pledged to crack down on those responsible for poorly made structures. But others blame the Erdogan government for not enforcing modern building codes in quake-prone areas. CBC's Abby Kuavasan reports.
More than a week after the devastating earthquake, a young girl is pulled alive from beneath the concrete and metal in Adiyaman. These miraculous moments are becoming rarer.
Building inside is super dangerously collapsed. We are digging with our nails. One by one, slowly, slowly, slowly.
Thousands of buildings have toppled over across 10 provinces, leaving many without a home. Many buildings didn't just come down.
They've collapsed into small fragments. One of the unfortunate consequences of that is that there are very few void spaces. In other words, holes in the wreckage where we might find people alive waiting to be rescued.
Officials say 131 suspects have been identified as being responsible for shoddy construction. Multiple arrests have already been made at Istanbul airport, but the opposition says Erdogan's government hasn't enforced regulations. Critics say his construction amnesty in 2018, which allowed companies to build without safety certificates, made matters worse.
Well, we've got a three-headed dog here. We've got corruption, we've got negligence, and we've got ignorance. The Turkish government has started to issue prosecution notices, more than 100 of those. That, I think, is a little bit hypocritical given the message sent out by the amnesties that the government has given to those who have not followed the rules.
Erdogan has vowed to rebuild. He says hundreds of thousands of structures will be ready within the year, but experts say adequate urban planning takes years, not months. Erdogan came to power after the previous government was blamed for how it managed the response after the major earthquake there in 1999. He now faces similar criticism ahead of elections in May. Abby Kuavasan, CBC News, London.
Okay, everybody take a big stretch because we are off to kitten yoga next. The first event of its kind for Brandon's Humane Society. Fiona Odlum's going to love that story. She'll be back with our Manitoba forecast as well. Oh, stay with us. This weekend, kittens struck a yoga pose in the hopes of finding their forever homes. Brandon's Luna Muna Yoga Studio partnered with Brandon's Humane Society to host the shelter's first ever kitten yoga. CBC's Chelsea Kemp was there.
Kittens race, climb, and do the downward facing cat? Luna Muna Yoga brought kitten yoga to the Wheat City to raise funds for the Brandon Humane Society. The classes also introduced adoptable kittens to community members. The studio instructor volunteers at the Brandon Humane Society. She says it's a fun experience, merging the two for the first time.
I try to incorporate poses that you can use the cats. So when we do tree pose, you can scoop up a cat, so like a cat in a tree, and obviously cat pose. And then we have some little helpers who are kind of bringing the cats over to people.
The Brandon Humane Society has around 70 cats and dogs available for adoption at the shelter. It can be challenging finding them a home, says a volunteer. But events like kitten yoga get the animals out and making new friends.
Well, it's very important to get them socialized because at the shelter they just they do see people like the volunteers, but it's the same people. So to get them out with different people, it kind of gives them a different experience. And
one participant says the fancy felines got to show off their personalities during the studio session. She hopes it inspires someone to adopt a cat to give them their forever home.
And it's easy. I think people have been locked away in their homes and kind of forgetting what is out there. And this morning is a perfect example of the life they can bring to a room.
McCrimmon says the success of the first ever kitten yoga has inspired her to host events in the future. For those who fall in love with a furry friend, they can visit the Brandon Humane Society and book an appointment to learn more about adoption. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
What do you think, Fiona?
Listen, I have a 3.5-month-old puppy that I did yoga with. I did not know about this. It went as well as you would assume. It was great. I started my morning with a big, huge smile. It's awesome.
It is fun. I've tried it with my dog, too, and he just basically sits on me. That's just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
it's more giggle yoga.
Yeah, than actually exercise, but that's fine.
That's fine.
We can all use some giggles.
Yes, we won't be giggling tomorrow when it gets cold.
Okay.
Big changes coming. Let's take a look, though, at this beautiful viewer photo that was sent to us from Kenora. I love this. Now, this one's tricky. You might think, is this picture blurry? But Paula pointed out, look, you got 3 layers of fog there. This picture is just breathtaking. Thank you so much, Paula, for sending me that. Fiona.Odlum at cbc.ca. That's where you can hit me up with those photos. 1 degree in Steinbach, 3 degrees in Eli. We're going to see a whole lot of minuses popping up on that board as we come back and chat on Wednesday. Really nice through the Interlake region and cooler as we look towards Churchill. I really want to talk about this Flin Flon zone and Lynn Lake where we have the snowfall warning. This popped up yesterday. This whole region here, this is where we're going to see this low coming through, bringing us significant snowfall. Here's that system now. It's just plunked right on top of there. It is a little bit slow moving in terms of how long it's going to take to get out. It's going to be out of there by midday tomorrow. With that, we could see some scattered flurries just along that western portion of the province. Doesn't really come to Winnipeg, sort of just grazes by there. We're going to see some sunshine and then cloud cover moving in on Wednesday. Cold air will start coming through still, clearing the sky out, and we're going to be seeing another jump in our temperatures. This is what we have tonight coming towards us. 13 centimeters towards Gillam and Shamattawa, 10 centimeters there. So we're really starting to get towards the end of it. The wind in the north, not a huge issue, so blowing snow should not be a big factor for you. There will be some, but not a whole lot. Okay, let's take a look now at overnight tonight. Still really warm over towards northwestern Ontario. We're going to still see a really easy evening, light wind. Could see some gusts, south 30, gusting 50, but we're going to be mostly on the 30 side. It's not going to be too bad, but this is where all the snow is tonight and cooler temperatures. Tomorrow, We'll see that snow ending by noon. We'll be watching for a pretty decent day, but windy. Here comes the wind into our day, starting midday, moving into the afternoon. Emerson, you could see some gusts into the 70s, I think. It's going to be a bit breezy for you. And then we're going to watch for some freezing rain and drizzle in northwestern Ontario, starting around lunchtime, Janet.
Okay, thanks for the warning. We'll be watching.
Good stuff.
She's been making Manitoba volleyball history for more than 60 years, and at 80 years of age, she still plays. The inspiring story of Marilyn Redekop after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. A lot of people who get involved in sports simply stop playing at a certain age, but not Marilyn Redekop. Every week you'll find this 80-year-old Winnipegger competing in a women's volleyball league. And in most gyms around town, people know her for how she's broken barriers for women in the sport. The CBC's Marcy Marcusa, who also plays volleyball, went to one of Marilyn's games last week.
Marilyn Redekop, 80 years young. Unbelievable. I owe you for paving the way for women's volleyball in Manitoba. It's a sport I've loved my whole life. What do you love about it?
Oh, what do I love about volleyball? Well, it's just a great game, and I just love being able to share it with friends of mine. Why shouldn't women do this, right? It's a wonderful game, and it's actually great because it's not a physical game, say like football. So I think women can do this one so well. And you can surround yourself with good players, and then it's a great game. I went to university in 1965. That was the second year that university had a phys ed program. So I already always wanted to do phys ed. And so I got accepted to play volleyball.
How successful were you guys?
We won the Canadian Championship 3 years in a row.
Wow.
And then in the first Winter Games, our team won the Junior Championship. We even have a City of Winnipeg ring. I repped volleyball, and I was the first female official to officiate at an international volleyball competition.
Oh my goodness, first international women referee, it's incredible, you know what I mean? It's inspired me to, I referee now, and the only reason I referee in Winnipeg is because she refereed, and it's just, you know, we need more women, we need more young women, and she's just such an inspiration.
This is Cameron DeGroot. She is my granddaughter.
I was supposed to come to University of Manitoba in 2020 when I graduated, and she said, Cameron, you have to play on our team, and I thought, oh, tier 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, I'm thinking, I don't know. But, and I didn't know how busy I'd be, but I'm so thankful that she was persistent. When I came here this year, she hands me a jersey and she says, our first game is on Tuesday. And I thought, oh, what am I getting myself into? But it's just been a blast. It's been so fun. I would not change it for the world.
My fingers were strong, just because as a young kid, I was playing piano a lot. And you know, both hands are working. So you're not like, oh, one hand is stronger than the other, because in piano, it's good, eh? You have ambidextrous. First of all, it keeps me active, gives me some activity, because I'm not a workout kind of person. I love a game. So you have to have the game, right? Has to be the game. And one of the real neat things is that every one of our grandkids have played volleyball. Every one of them, and we have 7. And they're all involved in volleyball, and we get to watch them, and I still know the game, right, which is great.
How many more years do you think you're going to play?
Oh, I think as long as I can. As long as I surround myself with lovely, young, talented people. What else would I do then? Sit and do nothing? Crochet? No,
whatever. I've never seen you crochet in your life.
Yeah, making you work here a little further. Sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. You want to come play? We got a position on my team.
Okay. Oh, I got a good team.
Oh, awesome.
Your 7-day forecast and daily lift are still to come, so stay with us.
enjoy tonight. We have a nice warm evening tonight and a nice day tomorrow, but look at that big temperature swing, -18. We are getting back into those cold temperatures, and we're going to stay into those seasonal values for Wednesday and Thursday. By Friday, we warm up again, and there's a little bit of snow right now in the long-range forecast, but I'm not really counting on it just right now.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. You know, it always seems to brighten your day if you come across wildlife. You know, you see a bunny out playing or something, especially if they seem to be having fun.
Absolutely. And we tend to see squirrels and gophers, maybe an odd fox or a deer, but maybe imagine coming across something like this.
I can't. Here's your Daily Lift. Okay, so, you know, we've got the inland oceans of the big lakes, Manitoba and Winnipeg, but we don't get orcas like they do in BC. Wow. Frank Lynn was on his way to do a bird survey at Brockton Point for the Stanley Park Ecology Society when another volunteer pointed these out, orcas swimming and playing under the Lions Gate Bridge.
Amazing. I would give anything to see that.
That's incredible, hey?
So beautiful.
So beautiful. Thank you for being with us tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night.
Night.